Over the course of the last year, we've been shown new mechanics that CIG are considering implementing into the game to deliver gameplay in relation to travelling long distances between planets and eventually star systems. This has been shown through the design posts covering the intended fuel mechanics and gameplay changes implemented in SC Alpha 3.3 and the changes in quantum travel. The quantum drive and fuel systems seem to be currently designed in isolation from one another and don't really present a cohesive vision for where travel gameplay is going. Many of the design ideas have and will create more frustration than fun, in my opinion. The distances in Star Citizen are going to be vast, whether you're talking about the distances travelling around a planet, across a solar system, or in between systems. The duration of this travel will make opportunities for encounters, but if done incorrectly, possibilities for frustration. The intention from the design post titled Shipyard Fuel Mechanics is that only short-range combat ships will not have fuel scoops. This will force those ships to have to stop and refuel more often than any other ship and rely on a mothership for transportation, which, at least from the outset of the game, is not something that most organisations will have access to. All other ships will have the ability to refuel themselves by capturing free particles of gas floating in space. Looking past the absurdly low amount of gas that is in a given volume of space, this penalises the military fighters for no apparent reason other than because they are combat ships. A high-end, high-tech military fighter unable to use a system that an entry-level civilian transport ship can, which is equivalent to a compact car in today's terms, makes absolutely no sense and has already caused a lot of angst amongst the community. These changes also have the effect of making ships that are designed to provide in-flight refueling essentially obsolete, as no ships apart from the fighters will require them anymore, limiting the gameplay involved with ships such as the Starfarer and Vulcan drastically. PTU 3.3 introduced a quantum drive limitation that limited the travel distance in quantum travel by component size. This has proven to be a source of annoyance with the player base and has been widely condemned, as it introduces nothing more than busy work instead of gameplay. The intended interdiction mechanics will cause enough drops out of quantum travel, limiting other gameplay types such as crafting, researching or even chatting, without introducing additional stops along the way arbitrarily. These stops should be due to having to stop to refuel or recalculate another quantum jump at a waypoint. So how would I change the proposed mechanics to make them more logical and at the same time, hopefully, fun? Rather than creating complicated fuel mechanics for no apparent reason other than to justify a new ship's design, the Origin 100 series, this mechanic could be simplified to become a resource management task just as fuel is in the real world. I would make the following changes. Only refueling ships would be equipped with intakes for scooping gases and refining fuel, such as the Vulcan and Starfarer, making them an important ship to have around and creating more gameplay for the people who own them. Refueling ships can hold multiple types of fuel, but are limited in number and type based on the number and size of tanks available to store fuel. This gives the Starfarer something unique between it and the Vulcan, justifying its additional size and makes sense when looking at the ship itself with multiple storage tanks. Only one type of fuel at a time can be held by ships that aren't refueling ships. That single fuel is used for all modes of flight, impulse, afterburner and quantum travel, making fuel capacity and consumption the range limiter. If you are intending to mine, fight or explore, then ensuring that you plan the best route of the best fuel and components for the job becomes very important, to ensure that you have enough fuel to get the job done and get home again. Fuel would only be consumed when accelerating. Once your ship is up to your desired speed and regular impulse flight, fuel consumption would be zero unless you accelerate in any direction. Afterburner would see an increase in use of fuel, but accelerate much faster. Quantum travel would increase fuel logarithmically, that is, less fuel per kilometre for short jumps, making travel around small areas and quest hubs like moons very cheap, with the amount of fuel per kilometre increasing the longer the jump is. The range of all ships would be limited by both the total volume of the fuel tanks inside them and the efficiency of the components that consume the fuel, such as quantum drives, engines and thrusters. Larger ships would logically have larger fuel tanks and therefore more range, however some ships would be more optimised than others. Ships can choose to carry additional fuel in external tanks, commonly known as drop tanks or jugs, in place of ordnance such as missiles or rockets. This would increase their range while also having the negative of a loss of offensive power and additional weight. Exploration ships would be equipped with the most efficient components and largest fuel tanks for their size, making them best for purpose out of the box. Additional low volume fuel collection and refinery items could possibly be carried by exploration ships to allow them to land and refine hydrocarbons or gases to get out of a tight spot. This would be an item that would have to be carried in the ship's cargo hold and would need to be set up when planetside prior to use and only generate basic fuel slowly, making it a viable safety net for the explorers while not being as simple as an auto fuel generator. The different fuel types could have different advantages and disadvantages, such as slightly additional acceleration, lower heat production, better efficiency for regular impulse flight, or better efficiency for quantum travel. Think of this like the difference between diesel, E10, premium and regular unleaded. This would make choosing the right fuel to suit your goals important. Rather than range, the size of the quantum drive would dictate the speed at which the ship can move at in quantum travel. This would encourage the fighters and smaller ships to dock with a mothership rather than fly alongside it unless absolutely necessary. The quality and type of components, engines, thrusters and quantum drives etc. fitted to the ship would dictate what they are best suited for. For instance, performance thrusters and engines would consume fuel quickly but have high acceleration and top speed. Civilian grade would be middling efficiency and relatively low acceleration, and military class components would have high durability, relatively high accelerations and middling to low efficiency. All these changes must be supported by intuitive and effective UI elements, such as an easily readable and always visible fuel gauge with range or time to empty at its current use rate on the MFD, or preferably on its own gauge in the cockpit. This must also show the amount of acceleration remaining in time. An easily interactable star map with built-in trip planner that gives the ability to plot a course from start to end in a waypoint system. Clicking a point in space or a point of interest on the star map would create waypoints numbered sequentially. Show the time to arrive at the current speed to each waypoint. Show the fuel required to reach each waypoint and the intended destination. These features are really essential to the game regardless of how fuel mechanics are implemented, as even now in 3.3.5, the information displayed to the user with reference to fuel use and travel times is not very intuitive. The star map must be able to be displayed on your MFDs so that your journey can be monitored at any time instead of having to open your Mobi-Glass in flight. The trip planner should also provide automatic bingo fuel level calculation, bingo being the minimum required fuel to get to your allocated final destination. This must be auto-calculated to ensure that you can get to your final destination with a small amount of reserve. As an example, if you leave Olisar and want to finish at Hurston, you will be able to explore Yella until you reach your bingo fuel before having to leave or risk running out of fuel. This will of course require the ability to set destinations such as Lorville and not just the planet Hurston itself. Aural warnings such as Bitching Betty when you reach your bingo fuel level
Bingo! Bingo!
to bring the pilot's attention to the fuel remaining in their ship without having to be constantly watching the fuel gauge. Having a single fuel system will also make snub fighters more interesting and would explain their requirement to dock and refuel from their mothership's internal fuel payload. This makes sense as being a tiny fighter, its fuel tank would be similarly tiny. Also, the Parasite fighter will not have a quantum drive, which is a big enough limiter in practice to make docking a must. Fuel and the related systems should be simple and logical gameplay devices that mimic the real world. Limiting range by using fuel load, component choice and making the management of the fuel in your ship rewarding will make for rewarding and intuitive gameplay. Making good choices in relation to your ship's components, planned route and logistical planning will reward the smart player and keep the support players meaningfully engaged by making refuel and support ships valuable again. Good hunting, pilots. For more information on how spacecraft systems work in Star Citizen, please refer to the spacecraft flight manuals found on the RSI website. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching.